Good morning to everybody. We're coming to you from the Unquiet Library here in our library lab, and we're going to be sharing with you today some of the insights of our sophomore scholars who have been immersed in a collaborative partnership between the library and Susan Lester's 10th Honors World Literature class since August. And they've been engaging in inquiry, question-driven kind of learning experiences and immersed in this sort of participatory learning environment in which they've been taking on a little bit more ownership of the directions for learning. And we're going to be talking with them today about their summative reflections that they just recently completed, and we're going to focus on some of the AASL standards for 21st century learners that they felt that they had either exhibited growth over the year in these areas and or mastery of some sort. So we're going to listen to what they have to say and learn from their insights. So we're going to start over here with Christina and Jordan. And if you want to share with us your kind of top two standards that you felt like you mastered and your reflections on that.
Okay, well, over the year, we, Jordan and I, my partner, we had a lot of issues, and we got stuck sometimes. And at the beginning of the year, we were a little more desperate for help. So, but more towards the end of the year, we really learned how to figure it out ourselves instead of just automatically seeking help. And towards the end of the year, it was just a lot easier to figure out what an appropriate time was to help. And also, I personally develop directions for future investigations. And throughout this whole process, I really had to stop and direct myself in the right direction. And I had to make a plan so that I knew that I could really get it all done. So I really feel like I've improved a lot in those areas.
Okay, thank you. And Jordan, how about you?
I feel as though I think we both improved on finding sources that were appropriate for our topic that we were researching, and not just using Google for everything, and using the databases and Google News and those kind of things to find sources that really helped answer the questions we had about our topic, and also using prior and background knowledge on whatever the issue was to grow upon that and learn more about it, and that's what I grew on.
And I know when we talked earlier this week and in the last week about some of your skills, I was really interested in the idea of building on prior knowledge, not just for your research task, but just kind of your general approach to the whole research and learning experience. Was there any particular thing that you feel like you improved on this semester, maybe in terms of organization of time or just getting a game plan together? I know Christina mentioned knowing, when you could self-help, and then, when you'd kind of exhausted that, when to actually come and seek assistance. Any thoughts on those points?
Time management, definitely. We didn't have to do as much as at home this time. We were able to get a lot done in class. I think last semester I had a problem with that, getting everything done on time.
And we also really, we used the databases and the websites for their true meaning. Like EasyBib, I mean, there's, as Jordan says, there are no words. And, so, I mean, we really use them to help us, to help ourselves, really.
So EasyBib made the citation and access to your sources easier, and you felt like you mastered the searching maybe a little bit more of those information sources?
Definitely.
Okay, cool. All right, well, we also have Tegan and Christina joining us this morning, and we'd like to hear about your kind of top two standards that you think that you mastered in reflections. So Tegan, you want to start us off?
Well, I think that one of the big things about high school students is that when we get a research project, we really don't want to do it. So basically, you give us sources that we can use, and we go through those sources and get the information we need sort of haphazardly. And I think that over this year, I've increased my ability to work through the need to just not do the project and actually put effort into the work that I'm doing. Because you really need multiple sources. You need a lot of information when you're doing research projects. So I think that I've improved on persisting and finding my information. And then Christina and I had an experience where we got to talk with a professional, Dr. Kimberly Mullen, who worked at the Veterans Crisis Line, and we got to interview her through email via Daniel Ryan, who lives in New York. And I think that both of us have really gotten a good skill that's going to help us in the future, like in seeking professional help.
And that was definitely a new area for us in expanding what an information source could be, was finding that expert, kind of vetting them, getting that letter of inquiry, developing the questions to give you another place to get quality information. I've just got a quick thought. You were talking about the idea that, so many times, students are given a research task and you do it, but you're kind of going through the motions and maybe your heart's not really in it. But for you, kind of engagement with that built this semester. Is there any particular aspect of the research experience or learning experiences that we did in class that you feel kind of maybe helped you make that turn, or to feel more engaged and kind of invested, emotionally and intellectually with your topic?
Well, I think that most of the time when you're given a research project, you're sort of given something you don't feel about. But we got to choose what we wanted to do, which was PTSD and veterans. And that's a very sensitive topic, and I think that our emotions were played along with the project. So I think that sort of helped us along.
So choice, you think, is important?
Yeah, definitely.
And you all also had choice this time, not only in the topics, but developing your actual research questions, which was a little bit different, from the past, where, you're given the outline or kind of things that, you want questions to follow. And this is just kind of a question for the group. What was that experience like in being able to develop your own research questions this time?
Well, I think that usually in research projects, like you said, there's only really one medium. But this time, like throughout this year, actually, it's been a lot more like eye-opening, because we were given so many different mediums that we could choose from. And I think that, for instance, Jordan and I, we chose a Zen PowerPoint presentation. And I think that because we got to choose that, we did a lot better on our actual project than we would have if we had been assigned something.
So choice, not only in terms of topics and developing the questions, but the way that you're going to share and create content is really important.
I think going back to the developing our own questions, I think that helped because we really got to choose the main points of a topic that we thought were most interesting, and not just broad things. We could really go into depth about what we wanted to talk about.
And do you think that, either the reading of our books that y'all also got to choose in our book tasting, or, we kind of had that pre-search time built in, was that helpful in assisting you kind of craft the sort of questions that you wanted to pursue?
Definitely. I think that being able to have the time before actually working on the project to sort of get like a basis of what we're going to be doing, I think that definitely makes an impact on our project.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I think the pre-research, doing that helps. I think that was more helpful than reading the book, like picking our book, because at that point we didn't exactly know what we wanted to do for our project, so we just picked a book we thought was interesting that might not have had the topic we ended up choosing in the end. So.
And there's nothing wrong with that. For some people it was a springboard, others it was a great read, but again, just having that freedom, not being bound to any particular set of questions or, it has to come from the book, was good. Okay. Well, Christina, what standards did you think that you improved in or that you mastered this time?
Well, the first one was find, evaluate, and select appropriate sources to answer questions. And I really think I did that because there's a lot of articles out there, and this semester and this year I've learned to sort the good ones from the bad ones, and ones that answer the questions that we made our own. And then the second one was connect understanding to the real world. And I did that we read nonfiction articles and we interviewed our expert, and it became real to me, the topic, more than it ever has in another subject.
Okay, that's great to know. Well, I've got one final question for y'all as a group, and I just want to throw this out there. But thinking about the learning experiences of this year, and certainly there was a curve, I think, for all of us, and us as teachers too. Even though we've done this before, because we learn something new every time as well. That first semester especially, and then we tried to incorporate that into second semester, which I think from what we're hearing was a good positive thing. But thinking about, this is, I don't think, the normal kind of learning experience for you all in high school, or at least at this point. If you were able to have more say, in the topics, kind of within the framework of the curriculum, and have more choices that you all have kind of shared with us today, what do you think learning might look like in this building if that kind of shift were to happen? Like, what might it look like?
Well, I think that it would be so much more personal, because with all the choices that we had and all the choices we could make, I think that I really, in the end, I had it sounds weird, but a personal connection to our project and the questions we were asking. And I think that it's because we could make all these choices and because we were participating so much. And I really think that if more subjects across the school were like that, then school would be a lot more, I could say, interesting.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I was thinking people would they'd be more interested in learning, and they wouldn't slack off as much maybe if they had an interest in they got to choose what they wanted to learn about. So.
I think that one of the things about teenagers is that you tell us to do something, and we really don't want to do it if we have no interest in it. But if you give us the option in a certain curriculum to choose something that interests us, I think we have a lot more drive to actually put in some effort to the project.
I think that's kind of the nature of human learning. We want to follow things we're curious about, and we hope that, in some way, this class has hopefully nurtured, the curiosity that maybe was there and just hasn't been tapped into maybe as much as we would like to see. And hopefully, we can maybe see some shifts, in that process. One final sort of question. The other thing that was sort of unique, I think, about this experience was the fact that, as some of you mentioned in your reflections yesterday, the library has become your second home. It's kind of like the classroom away from the classroom. And we have met in here most of the time. And I know I enjoy working with Mrs. Lester and getting to be part of, what you all are doing every day, because it's interesting to me to see what you're learning. Would you all be interested, maybe in similar experiences, or do you think, teachers may be utilizing not just the resources, but kind of the instructional part, that the library has to offer? Do you think that too could enhance what learning might look like, in the future here?
I think that since there's so much more technology and so many different things in the library in comparison to in the classroom, I think that opens up a whole nother set of doors, if you will.
It's actually funny because when we walked into class today, I automatically started walking here. I walked right past the classroom. and Christina, she was like, "Jordan, come back." But I agree. I think that, like Christina said, the technology definitely helps.
And not only is it the technology and the other resources that you have, but in a classroom you're sort of boxed in by the white walls and just the posters that the teachers try and put to make it more comfortable. But in the library you have the couches, the nice books, the puzzles, which I love doing.
Yes. And we're hoping to add a second puzzle table come August.
And I mean, it's just a friendly atmosphere, and it's a place you want to be. It's a place that I feel comfortable learning in.
And that's, exactly what we're trying to build, as well as working with teachers to introduce strategies for learning, like the fishbowl discussions, which, through the library we introduced to Mrs. Lester and some of our other teachers here. The mind mapping strategies, we introduced. And, again, I'm very appreciative that we have teachers like Mrs. Lester who are open, to the library being kind of that, sort of teaching partner to say, hey, have you thought about trying this? And I know that the mind mapping and the fishbowl really worked for a lot of you in this class as well, and hopefully we can do more of that too next year. All right. Well, we very much appreciate all your insights and pearls of wisdom that you've shared with us today. And thank you all for what you've had to teach us as the adults. And hopefully, we'll continue to try to fold that into the learning experiences for you all next year. And I thank you all for your hard work. Thank you.